Hello, everyone. Very, very excited to be here. Welcome to the Shift Happens live event we have here at Fiverr. We are at episode 2, all revolving GEO, Generative Engine Optimization. We have amazing agenda plans for you all. Thank you all for joining. I will be introducing myself in a few minutes and then showing you all the agenda. We have our amazing speakers over here on the screen. Very, very excited to have you all here. And yeah, we will start shortly. So just quick introduction. My name is Tal. Really nice and pleasure meeting you all. I'm a vertical manager at Fiverr. I manage the strategy behind all the digital marketing services at Fiverr. I have over a decade of marketing experience and overall been at Fiverr for a bit over a year. Very excited to lead all the GEO at the company, all the innovation behind. Before we step in, I just want to let you all know what is GEO. I think for most of you here that are here, you probably already know, but we know that GEO is a strategy that helps increase rankings, visibility in AI-powered search engines like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, etc. Today, we're going to go a bit of a deep dive. I will show you some Fiverr data, and the whole session and the whole idea is to give you all a big value and educational value in case you're curious, in case you want to learn about it more, in case you want to open services at Fiverr for GEO. So I will be sharing a bit of the data here. So since our launch in early April, you can see and we can see great numbers. The reason that we launched GEO services at Fiverr to begin with is because we already seen a lot of demand from buyers. We've seen already our current SEO experts and agencies transitioning to GEO, selling a lot of services. So we decided that we need to have a proper category for it. Until now, since it's been open in April, we have over 1,300 gigs. We have over 1,500 freelancers offering their services, which is very exciting. This is a wonderful growth that we've seen. Already 9 GEO agencies that are experts in GEOs. And currently, we have 3 ongoing big campaigns that we are targeting over 100K buyers from all over the globe in order to bring awareness and obviously conversions to the GEO services at Fiverr. So this is very exciting. Today's agenda, we will go over GEO with our expert, Ari. Then we're going to have some tips and tricks with Milad. He's our Fiverr Pro seller expert in GEO. And then we will have a spotlight on a GEO tool, XFunnel. We will have Barry, the co-founder of the company. And then we will have some time for a Q&A session for all of you to ask questions. Now I'm handovering to Ari. Great for you to join us, Ari. Please introduce yourself and enjoy.
Thank you, Tal. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you all the Fiverr team for having me. Excited to be here. Hopefully, it will be beneficial for all of us. What we're going to review here today in my 15 minutes, that's starting now. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. The topics that we are going to cover is how generative engines pull and present results. You can see it now. What metrics do we track when we're doing GEO? Measuring success after GEO optimization. And at the end, of course, we will have time for questions. And also, I will ask you guys if you are doing GEO today. So let's move to talk a little bit about myself. First of all, I'm a father. I have two daughters, Yarin and Zoe. This is the main thing, my best project ever. I do some sports, various kinds of sports, kayak paddling, yoga, Muay Thai, trying to be healthy. A little bit about my career. I did some three pivots in my career. Back on the days, I was a developer slash DevOps. At the top, I managed the operations in eBay Israel. Then I built some couple of SaaS platforms and one startup. I moved to my product days. At the peak of that, I was a product architect at Tufin, which is a cyber IPO company. And over the last 5 years, I'm focusing only on marketing. I did marketing all of my career, but over the last 5 years, I'm focusing on that. The companies that I've been in, I mentioned eBay. I was the head of growth at Wix, at DeviantArt. It's one of the businesses of Wix. I had like 3 years, I call it a school of e-commerce. I had 3 years of that vertical. And of course, as I mentioned, I was in the cyber vertical for quite a while. How did I get into GEO? So basically, 2 years ago, I started to get traction from several marketeers, VP marketing, head of SEOs of several companies asking me around what's going on the LLM search engines. And some of that, traffic, some of the traffic is attributed, some is not. We've seen a drop in the regular SEO sources benchmarking around several companies, and nobody basically knows what's going on over the LLM's search engines. So I started to dig in, started to learn, I started to extract information from several tools and several platforms. And today, I co-founded Focala, which is one of the tools that is out there that helps us to get, first of all, the visibility and then the actions, the actual action plans on how to promote your brand around LLM search engines. Let me first say that today, first of all, it's very exciting times because today nobody have the recipe. If we're talking about GEO, today nobody have the recipe for, if we're like looking at traditional SEO, there is, a kind of a playbook around regular SEO, which basically we focus Google as the main source, as the main engine. And why today nobody have the recipe? Because it's very, very, very complex. And we are talking about several engines, and as we've seen in our system, we are seeing a weekly base of new engines. Alibaba just issued an engine, Yandex issuing engines. So think about it. We not only need to monitor or reverse engineering one engine, we have to look on several engines and monitor the activity. The changes behind those engines are frequently. Some of them are working close to Reddit, some of them are working close to Quora. So it's complex. So today, nobody have the recipe, but what will happen in 3 months, 6 months, in a year, my guess is we will have some kind of a playbook, some kind of a strong visibility on how to do GEO. And that's regarding the recipe. How generative engines pull and present results. So basically, the engines, this is I think like a basic one-on-one on how the engines are pulling and presenting results. I thought about this topic to start with. First, they're analyzing the user natural language query, understanding its intent and content. Basically, if we're looking at the similar or the parallel SEO world, till today we had like keywords that were like the main focus, keywords and terms, the main focus of promoting your brand on SEO. Today we're talking about like prompts. Those prompts are basically the natural language that those LLMs need to scan and identify. and understand with the reasoning model what's the intent of the and the context of the user. After that, they're retrieving the most relevant documents, typically the top ranked sources based on content structure and authority. It's very similar to Google, as they retrieve the sources. They have their own databases today, most of the LLM engines. They prioritize contents that are well structured. If I'm always doing the parallel to what people already know about SEO, as we have like technical SEO structure to website to site TXT, there's a parallel universe around GEO. In GEO, there is like the LLM TXT, the structure of the website. It's well considered on every LLM engine. And regarding the presenting, they retrieve the documents and they are passed to generative model, which extract the relevant info and response. By the way, I'm reading from my slide, my decks. You can have it after the webinar ends. Just reach out to me. Often included citation or source reference. So basically, again, if we're looking at the ordinary SEO world, till now we had citations. Today we call it sources. Basically, each engine once retrieve the answers, it retrieves also the sources that it relied on. So once we're getting a segment of each response, we can see the sources that we get that are relying on when they have the answer. When question is asked, the system searches database, document, or trusted websites for the most relevant pieces of information, almost like internal Google search. It's almost the same. Okay, to the next point. What metrics do we track when doing GEO? So basically, there are a couple of other, or let's say new metrics, and I will line them up. The first one is visibility score, which is basically a formula combining the mentions, the positioning, the attribution, and the topical relevance of benchmarking and reporting. Basically, it's a formula that we gathered together in order to check the percentage of visibility of a brand performance on AI engines. Usually, by the way, we do it on several engines, not on one engine. I told you about the complexity of getting a visibility in GEO. So we're going out to Claude, to ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, etc. We sending them prompts in order to see what is the answer that we are getting, what are the sources that we are getting. We're gathering all of this data and analyze that. Once we have all of this data, we can look at these specific metrics, such as the visibility score. The next one is the mention rate. Basically, it's how often your brand, site, or product appear in AI-generated response for your target queries. So same thing. Once we send those prompts, we're looking for the brand mentions all over those engines. And basically, we score them. This is the metrics that we are looking at. Sources citation rates, how often the AI actually cites your page or source. Higher rates response authority, meaning the more your brands, by the way, this is the same as Google so far, the more your brand's citation volume is higher, then you are ranked higher on those engines. There is the positioning score. What we usually do is not only sending the brands itself to those engines to check those prompts, we also call them vertical prompts, which basically ask questions like, what are the top X on that vertical, in order to see the competition. In these platforms that we check GEO, we usually add your competitors' brands in order to have some kind of a benchmark. Where are you? Because as a company, you are not alone in the world, and we want to see the positioning score and to track it as well. Conversation rate is another point, another metric that we are looking at, the proportion of users who take desired action after interacting with AI-generated content, meaning it's basically your conversion. Okay, once users, active users, are coming to your website and make a conversion, we are looking at that, of course, because that's the impact on the business itself. So that's another metric. By the way, it's similar to any source of marketing out there, meaning it could be paid traffic, organic traffic, affiliation traffic, etc. It's a metric that it's also on, of course, on GEO. Another, and the last one, it's the technical GEO score. So basically, it's involving optimizing your website infrastructure and code so that AI agent can crawl, understand, and surface your content in generative results, and not just in traditional search. There is a schema, bullets, a lot of around structured data, site speed, performance, credibility. We've seen a lot of additional points to the regular technical SEO that usually is used on website infrastructure, such as WordPress, Webflow, Wix, etc. Next topic. Of course, in the end, I know that there will be a room for questions, so feel free to ask. So how do we measure success? After we do all this geo optimization, we got the visibility, we're monitoring our prompts, we're sending them to the engines, to each one of those engines, we're getting the data on our competition and on our brands and all of the sources together that rely on those answers. So first of all, we're tracking our stats. Today, by the way, it's not so easy to track the LLM engine sources. It's not trivial because, as you may know, and you can see when you're asking ChatGPT or Perplexity question, you can see that some of the answers have sources and some of them are not. Meaning that the traffic that is coming to your websites, sometimes it's attributed. You can see it in Google Analytics. And sometimes it's marked as direct traffic. What we are doing today, we are monitoring the delta because we believe that some of the traffic on the direct part will grow. Basically, once you do GEO, you basically want to see the impact on the sources from the LLM engines. And you're monitoring those LLM sources. But again, it's very important to look at the direct traffic as this delta should be growing in some size. We don't know to divide or to split the direct traffic to brand awareness, for example, from LLM sources, but we still want to monitor that part. So identifying, by the way, it's also not trivial. We notice because of these days, in this AI era, there's an engine almost every month, a new engine comes. We see it on our systems, and we sometimes need the help of AI in order to understand if it's a real source of AI search engine and not just some kind of an affiliation link or something like that. The next thing to measure success is by brand mentions. Usually when you use a platform, GEO platform, you can use that metrics as well. It's basically the number of contexts of time your brand is referenced, even without direct link. I see that the time is already up almost, so I have just 2 more points. We have the 3 more points: share of voice, the citations, quality, and count. We count those citations, and conversation. We track completed actions. Basically, we track an oriented from AI link, traffic, and attribution. And the last thing I have to say about GEO is even that nobody have the recipe today, I think it's very important to monitor the activity from now on and forward. It's a must. It's a must because already now I can assure you that the data that is coming from those platform, those GEO platform, those GEO tools, it's important because currently for those who are not doing GEO, it's basically a black box. That's it for now. Tal, the microphone is yours.
Thank you so much, Ari. This was really interesting, very educational. Always happy to learn about how experts are doing it in the GEO realm. And moving to Milad. Milad is our Fiverr Pro freelancer excelling GEO at our platform. Milad, the stage is yours.
All right. Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining this presentation. I'm Milad Masha. I live here in near San Francisco, California, and I'm happy to have you here. So let's go ahead and get started. Just a little bit about my background. So actually, let's just start with just a little welcome. So today I'll be sharing my journey as one of the Fiverr Pro sellers specializing in GEO or Generative Engine Optimization. So we'll explore exactly what GEO actually is, why it matters right now, and practical tips you can apply to your own gig. So my goal is to make this session both educational and actionable so you can walk away with a clear sense of how GEO can help you future-proof your business or your client's business. Okay, so I've been just a little intro about me. I've been working in SEO for over 10 years in both personal projects and professional roles. So I built my first websites back like in 2013, 2014. And I even had an SEO job at an agency back in Los Angeles in 2017, as you can see on that picture in the slide. So since then, I did become a freelancer in 2018. So in 2018, I quit my job in the corporate role and I became a freelancer. Since then, I've worked with businesses across many different industries, helping them scale through organic visibility. So when generative engines started shaping how people search, it felt like a natural transition from SEO into GEO. So I always recommend learning SEO fundamentals first because those skills are the foundation for understanding GEO. On Fiverr, I became one of the early pro sellers offering GEO, which kind of gave me a front row seat to how the demand has been growing. And freelancing since 2018 has given me a lot of flexibility to test different strategies and share those results with clients worldwide. All right, and then moving on to gig creation. So how to position your services, basically. So essentially, your Fiverr gig is your storefront, right? And the first impressions matter. So making sure you have the right category chosen, obviously. So there's some obvious things, some not so obvious things. Because if your gig is in the wrong category, the right buyers will never see it, right? So little things like that. The titles are super important. The keywords that you put in your titles are very important. So I always try to use keywords that people are actually searching. Like I might use the keywords ChatGPT in my title or specific platforms like Shopify, Squarespace, WordPress. I might add those keywords to my title because someone might go to Fiverr search and search, GEO for Shopify or AI optimization or AI SEO for Squarespace, right? So having those keywords in your title is one of the biggest factors when it comes to ranking your gig for those keywords. And then things like your visuals and descriptions definitely need to align with the client needs. So your description and all the little details in your gig should, instantly communicate the value that you bring. Your scope of work and pricing should be transparent. A lot of the time when I look at gigs from sellers, I noticed that it's kind of vague. It says like, for example, I'll do GEO for your website and improve your AI visibility. There's not much info on exactly what the deliverables are going to be. So I recommend kind of being a little more specific because then the seller can compare your scope of work to other sellers' scope of work easier. And Yeah, so the Fiverr buyers are comparing multiple sellers quickly. So making sure your description and FAQs are optimized for conversions. Responding to messages fast is extremely important. And obviously, pricing is very important to clients. So making sure your pricing is in line with other sellers. But if you can differentiate your gig, maybe you provide a more premium service, then you can charge a premium pricing, for example. So we'll have Q&A at the end. Feel free to let me know if you have any other questions about gig creation towards the end of this meeting. We'll move on to researching keywords and buyer behavior. So one of the simplest but most powerful research methods is just to put yourself in the shoes of the buyer, to act like the buyer, right? So I'll go to Fiverr search and I'll search for keywords that I want to rank for, like AI, SEO, Squarespace, for example. Then I study the top gigs. I look at what keywords they've optimized their gigs for. I look at how they've formatted their titles and descriptions, because a seller that has already been providing that service for a while has already gotten a lot of feedback, completed a lot of jobs. They know what the buyers are looking for, right? So if you're a little bit unsure on pricing or scope of work or how to format your titles and descriptions, I'm not saying go and copy anyone, but you can definitely take inspiration when you look at other sellers, right? Besides that, so you want to kind of mirror what the specific buyer language is, so what the buyers might be searching. So instead of optimizing your gig for optimized structured data for your description, you might say, I'll help you make your site rank on Google AI. So the client does not care so much about the very technical things. They do care about the deliverables. They want to know what the deliverables are. But the very super technical details like structured data, most clients, that's kind of outside the realm of their knowledge. But it is good to include things like that in your gig. Okay, so beyond Fiverr search, I also leverage tools like Google Trends, Fiverr autofill suggestions. As you can see here in the screenshot on the screen, if you start searching a keyword in Fiverr search, Fiverr will suggest you other keywords, right? So you can do this in Fiverr search, you can do this in Amazon search, you can do this in Google search, and those are basically trending keywords, right, that people are searching the most often. So those are additional keywords you can use to optimize your gigs. And you can even use keyword research tools like Google Ads Keyword Planner, for example. When I'm creating a gig or a web page or anything, I usually also use a keyword research tool, again, like Google Ads Keyword Planner, to research keywords. All right, so let's move on to using analytics and buyer requests to continuously improve your gigs, right? So my gigs are never static. They're always getting updated. I'm always making little tweaks. I constantly refine my gigs based on things like analytics and buyer requests. So for example, Fiverr's Seller Plus analytics gives me detailed data on impressions, clicks, keywords, what keywords are converting. So I'll look in those analytics, and if I notice a dip, I'll update my titles, I'll update my descriptions or my FAQ. Or let's say a buyer messages me, right? So buyer requests are just as valuable when it comes to helping you improve your gigs. What the buyer tells you is a direct signal of what the market is asking for. So if multiple buyers ask for the same deliverable, for example, like an AI visibility audit, as you can see here in the screenshot on the screen, this is a message that I received from a buyer. They said, we're looking for someone to help us improve our AI visibility on platforms like ChatGPT, Gemini, Google AI. We want to get an audit or a visibility study to compare us to competitors, and they want an action plan too. So obviously the things that buyers are telling you, it's probably more than just them looking for that. So let's say one client messages you about visibility study or audit, then probably more clients are going to also ask you the same thing. So you would want to either create a gig offering that service. So anytime someone messages you asking for that, you can just simply send them the link to that gig, or you can add that as a deliverable to your GEO gig, for example. Okay, so yeah, as I just mentioned, if multiple buyers ask for the same deliverable, I update my gig scope to include it. So this ongoing feedback loop, data plus direct buyer input, keeps my gigs competitive and ensures I'm always aligned with what clients want. All right, so some tips when working on GEO. So you can kind of think of GEO as an extension of SEO or search engine optimization. So starting with the basics like on-page optimization, technical SEO, making sure your content is accessible and getting indexed in Google. So if you're not sure what those things are that I just mentioned, on-page SEO, technical SEO, indexing, definitely become familiar with those terms and methods and techniques before trying to do GEO. So generative engines like ChatGPT and Perplexity often pull the same sources that Google does. So having strong SEO fundamentals really matters. So after the SEO fundamentals are in place, on-page SEO and technical SEO, then the next important step is building authority off page. So things like PR mentions, getting mentioned in local news, local media publications, or national media publications, guest posts on blogs, backlinks. These are all basically trust signals, right? So you have to remember that AI is mostly relying on signals and authority. Signals is optimization, and authority is brand awareness or brand strength. So GEO is not about gaming or manipulating the system. It's about aligning your brand with what AI sees as credible. If the engines consistently see your name and brand tied to the keywords or relevant topics people are searching, that increases your chance of being mentioned in AI generated answers. So one of the most important things to remember is patience. Just like SEO, GEO results don't usually happen overnight. GEO generative engines are definitely evolving. Then there's no fixed formula yet. So that's why experimentation is key. Experimentation has always been key in SEO as well. There's never been, a set formula for SEO. It's always been changing. It's always SEOs are always experimenting even today. So I do things like test different keyword variations, gig descriptions. For example, I test different pricing but experimentation without measurement doesn't help, right? So that's where the data comes in. I rely heavily on analytics to guide my decisions, whether it's the Fiverr analytics or other types of analytics. If something's working, I scale it. If not, I adjust, right? So that's what I think sets apart sellers who thrive long term. All right. So just finishing up my last few minutes here, just some closing and encouragement. So GEO is one of the biggest growth opportunities that we have right now. It builds on SEO fundamentals, but takes them into the future. And because it's still early, there's a first mover advantage. So the sellers who invest now invest their time and effort into experimenting, learning, and refining their techniques will be tomorrow's leaders in this GEO space. So if you've already been doing SEO, you're definitely ahead of the curve. And my final advice is to take action, stay patient, and let the data guide you. So the earlier you start, the better positioned you'll be as GEO becomes mainstream.
Thank you, Milad, so much. That was so actionable and helpful. I'm sure that our Fiverr freelancers will have great use of all your points. Super interesting for me to see it too. So thank you. I do want to comment just from a Fiverr employee perspective of what you said. We see a lot of buyers that are searching at the moment also the term AI SEO. So we know that buyers, they're not really savvy sometimes. They don't know the actual industry terms sometimes, but we did see in the past couple of weeks an increase in those searches. So any freelancer and you as well that can use that information, please go ahead. You can also add that as a keyword to your Fiverr gig. And moving to our final speaker, Barry. He's the co-founder of XFunnel, which is our partner company at Fiverr. They are doing GEO for Fiverr brand. Handing over
Thank
to
you,
you,
Tal,
Barry.
and thank you, Ari and Malad for speaking. Lots of great tips, I think, and points from everybody. I am Barry. I am the co-founder of XFunnel. We are one of the earlier players in the AI search GEO space, supporting brands like Fiverr and other folks like Wix, HubSpot, Monday, and many other large brands. So we have been experimenting in this space for a long time, and I think one of the things that we realized is that measurement is the first piece, but really the way that we think that the space will evolve will be through, as some of the earlier folks mentioned, through experimentation. And the first thing that we did was we released our platform out into the market. And very quickly, folks like the Fiverr team and many others said, okay, great. Now help us with the actions, right? And I think, that's a sentiment that we hear over and over again. And I think that's really the opportunity that many of you sellers have, as the demand for this is really any company that needs to be present and found digitally, right, on the internet. So demand is rising. I think all of us are seeing our usage shift. So from an XFunnel perspective, what we do is we help the leading brands really manage this whole process around GEO, around AI search. And the way that process starts is really to really understand kind of what is the basic framework of how do our potential buyers behave online, and how can we simulate that on the AI search engine to understand what we need to optimize for. And I am going to jump into the demo and show how we do this at XFunnel, but I wanted to share one quick thing before we do that. So let me quickly share my screen to show you really the essence of what I think is going to be really, really valuable as you begin to really think about offering services in this space. So really the first thing there is around like the blog or the site that you're optimizing for is like the main place. And then from there, you need to amplify the content across various channels, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's YouTube. And for that, we need to continuously monitor. So like that is kind of the basic framework that we need to think about as we begin to optimize. And it's really all about the actions. So I quickly wanted to show that, but really shifting over and to XFunnel, let me just get okay. So this is the XFunnel platform, and it'll connect at the end towards what we just saw. So really, as the folks mentioned, we have the core KPI around brand visibility. And here we're trying to understand one core thing. How often does our brand or the brand that we're trying to promote show up in responses? Now, there's a couple ways to measure this. The key thing to know is the prompts that we use, and we'll go into how to look at the measurement around prompts, but they should be unbranded. Because if we put a brand in the prompt, then it will always be in the response as well. So we need to be really cautious in how we pick the various prompts when we go and enter them into a system like XFunnel or any other. But really, there's a story here to be told around each and every brand. So the first one is around the visibility, right? And each answer engine behaves slightly differently. And so we're seeing that when we study the sources, the citations, which help us figure out which strategies we want to take, there are slightly different strategies that we need to take between the answer engines. So for example, when we go into XFunnel, we can go into the citation analysis, which we aggregate citations from across the answer engines. But if we actually filter on citations from, let's say, AI mode, we will see that YouTube usually ranks pretty highly, right? And here we have core on Reddit. But if we actually filter on ChatGPT, and I've gotten asked. So top 10 citations for Fiverr, for example, top 10 sources. So YouTube is up here. So that means a YouTube strategy is something that we will want to double down on because it is heavily influencing the answer engine's responses. If we filter on a different answer engine like ChatGPT, and I'm focusing on ChatGPT with search because it's actually going out to the internet, we no longer see Reddit, YouTube in the top 10, but we do see Reddit. So based on the client's priorities, right, where they think most of their users are going to be, where do we need to prioritize what types of strategies? So for example, here we already see that a Reddit strategy is going to be important and the YouTube strategy is going to be important. Now, when we get into content, there's a lot of nuances here as well. So at XFunnel, one of the views that we take in terms of analyzing content is we actually take a step back and we try to think about who is our customer, who is the audience that we're optimizing for. And the reason that we do that is because all the AI search engines actually use history, our search history. And over time, they're getting more sophisticated in knowing who we are. And they've all announced that they use history. And we can actually see that in the data that there's actually, if me as the co-founder of XFunnel, I perform a specific search on ChatGPT or any of these, most of these answer engines, and Ari or Tal do the same search, we will get different answers because there's actually the context of our prior searches. So when we do optimization, we actually need to look at it, one, in terms of who's actually doing the searches, as Milad alluded, but also according to their different level of intent. So on XFunnel, we do an intent analysis to actually understand what folks are asking depending on where they're at in the funnel. And based on that, we begin to actually create a brand visibility score for the top of the funnel. When there's actually some brand awareness, we're actually looking at ranking. How does one brand compare to others in terms of the AI search engine? And then finally, we actually want to ask questions about things that the brands are already doing. And that is primarily for bottom of the funnel questions. And the reason that we do that is because oftentimes these models hallucinate. They get stuff wrong. So if folks are asking questions about pricing, about particular features, and ChatGPT doesn't know that the product that you're promoting does that, or that you offer this service around your job, well, you might lose some very high intent customers. So we have analyses that actually focus on specific features. The other point of view is also to look at share of voice. How often do I appear versus our competitors? So the way we derive all of these is actually we go and we generate certain prompts, and then we run them against the answer engines, and then we look at what are the responses across the answer engines. And we look at trends around the question data, and we do these comparisons around different personas. So there's a bunch of ways to analyze, and all of that at the end of the day, the purpose of it is to help us understand what sources each answer engine is looking at, right? If they're looking at Reddit, they're looking at YouTube, they're looking at Quora, Medium. Each one of these sources has different strategies. So one of the things that we do at XFunnel, again, I'll go back to the different levels of intent. So for middle of the funnel questions, what we will see is there are very specific types of content that work better. Like for example, here we see top lists or listicles, product pages and blogs are very popular for middle of the funnel. As we increase our level of intent that we want to analyze, we go down the funnel, we see this shift slightly. Suddenly, we're seeing comparison articles become very popular. And so based on the buying journey, we need to actually enable our customers to actually create different types of content. And finally, when we're looking at questions that are bottom of the funnel, blogs and product pages usually are the ones that are most dominant on those because there are pages that answer specific questions about our products. So as we do this analysis for customers, that's when we can actually begin to develop these strategies. So once we actually put a strategy together for our customers, they begin to actually take action on it. What we do at XFunnel is we actually create experiments to track how these perform across answer engines, and then we can actually see how they perform across the different KPIs, and really have a data-driven approach to analyzing these things. The other things that we do is we also help our customers by generating topic suggestions. How do we actually bridge the gaps for areas where we don't have visibility? So there's a bunch of different strategies, right? So first, what we do is we analyze visibility, we understand where we have gaps, and then we make topic and content recommendations. And then based on the citation analysis of what sources the answer engines use, whether it's earned content, which actually goes from like PR and earned media, to maybe owned content, which is our site, we decide where we want to place this content. So really, you have to take a data-driven approach to really understanding how to really impact the metrics. And again, as Milad and Ari mentioned, it's very much an evolving space. The playbook is being rewritten constantly with data deals that the answer engine signed, with model updates that happen every 2 to 3 months or so. And so it is certainly very volatile, but there's definitely opportunity to optimize, and we're seeing the impact there. So fascinating space, lots of opportunity, lots of demand, I think lots of value. And I think the key thing is people need help to be educated around this transition of how the user behavior is changing and how to think about this differently, because people are used to seeing traffic and people are used to seeing clicks, and these things are evolving. They're not the same way that they used to be, but we already know that a lead that comes from ChatGPT and the answer engines is 3 to 6 times more valuable because they have a much higher level of intent. So the leads are valuable. There's a big shift, and really a lot of folks just, I think, need help in really understanding how to transition from traditional SEO and combining that with GEO and evolving the strategies accordingly. Okay, now I'll pass it on to Tal.
Thank you. That was really, really helpful. Very exciting to see also Fiverr as a brand growing our strategies with XFunnel. So thank you for all the partnership and important work that you're doing with us. Move into a Q&A session right now. So we have some questions lined up, and we will split it between the speakers. We have a question about Fiverr promoted gigs. I will read the question. Does non-promoted gigs being pushed back, and eventually they earn less, so they push behind even more? Thank you for the question. The answer is no. As you all as freelancers, at our listing pages at the marketplace, we have a dedicated spot for the Fiverr ads, aka our promoted gigs. And then we have also the gigs that are organically showing up according to their popularity and many other components in our algorithm. So it will be equal visibility, exposure, and impression. So the answer is no. We will always set, and we'll always make sure we have an equal gigs that are organic and Fiverr ads in every listing. I see that there's another question here. So the question is, from which tools? It's a question for Milad. For which tools can we measure the GEO traffic or the results? How do you measure success in GEO campaign beyond traditional matrices like rankings and organic traffic? If you can say a few words about it, will be great.
Creating software.
Hold on, Milad, you're muted. Now you're.
Oh, hey. So as you saw, there's founders like Beery creating softwares to track AI visibility, right? But besides that, if you don't necessarily want to pay for a software, because the softwares are a little expensive right now, you can look at referral traffic in Google Analytics to see how much % of your traffic is coming from places like ChatGPT. And I'll let Ari or Biri add anything else to that. But besides that, a lot of the metrics are still very similar to SEO unless you're using an AI visibility software.
Amazing. Thank you. We have a question for Barry. How is your platform different compared to Profound or Peak AI? PEECAI.
Yeah. So the basic premise that all tools do is they send prompts to the answer engines and measure visibility. I think each platform has slightly different kind of angles to it. We have, I would say, three core things that are unique to us. One, we really focus on the buying journey, which lets you actually personalize the prompts to different target customers. And we think as memory becomes a bigger part, that part is going to be more and more important. And I think also looking at different levels of intent really maps out with a lot of how marketers think about going to market. The second part is experimentation. We have thousands of experiments running on the platform at any given point in time. That gives us, I think, one of the biggest data sets in the world today on what works on AI search engines and what doesn't. And what we're doing constantly is iterating on that, giving that value back through the product to our customers by productizing different angles of that work more or work less. So that data set for us is something that's extremely unique as we scale out experimentation and have all these really strong brands and strong growth teams experiment. And I would say the third is the granularity of the data, meaning, for us, showing stuff at a high level isn't good enough. So we actually let you go to extreme resolutions of data at the prompt level and give you a ton of granularity and flexibility to upload prompts at pretty large scales and really get extremely granular with the analytics. And that's how we have really kind of advanced growth teams using our platform on their exploration, but also on their corporate level reporting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your answer. Question for Ari. Why is GEO so important if the traffic does not convert into visits on the website, but AI just pulls the information from the site without the searcher actually knowing where?
Wow, this is like a twisted question. First, I want to say thank you also to Be'eri and Milad on their present. I was very excited to hear their presentation. It was very good. And second, regarding the answer, GEO is important because currently the shift already happens. If you don't see the sources, that doesn't mean your ICPs are not working on LLM search engines. If you see we are seeing already verticals that are shifting completely from Google search to ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, and etc. We're already seeing that. So if you don't see the source, it doesn't mean that your ICPs are not there. And for that, first of all, you need some kind of visibility. And you need to prepare for that, to understand better what your ICPs are doing in various verticals. So not dealing with that is just, you're gonna miss it out. This is a new era. Think about your colleagues, think about, I heard a grandmother talk about ChatGPT. So I think, most of it are out there using some kind of LLM. And it's gonna just, increase in a matter of time. So if you're not doing now GEO, you're missing it out.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else from the speakers would like to add something here? Barry, you are muted.
I've unmuted myself. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah, look, I think like the big question is most of our customers have have taken on AI search, GEO, because they saw traffic going away and they see the shift happening, right? And so I think we just need to be comfortable with the fact that we're kind of in this in-between period as attribution gets figured out. And once that happens, the metrics are going to get reinvented around citations, around influence, and really around, at the end of the day, customers. There's still a visibility gap at the end of the day around full attribution. And we just have to be kind of comfortable with it for the next probably 3 to 6 months. And once that gets sorted out and we kind of retool around the metrics, we will see, because at the end of the day, the numbers speak for themselves, right? In terms of ChatGPT adoption and Google's impending kind of AI mode launch and expansion. So, it's happening, right? So the question is, do you ignore it or do you do something about it?
Wonderful. Thank you. We have another question here. Can GEO and SEO strategies work together, or do brands need to choose and focus? I think Milad has a really good point about it when he spoke. If you want to, Milad, share a few more pointers. You were talking about the dynamic between the SEO fundamentals and GEO. Would you like to repeat one of the points?
Yeah. So can GEO and SEO work together, or do brands need to choose one to focus? Again, they're currently pretty much the same process. You do on-page SEO, you do technical SEO, and you do off-page SEO. You try to improve your authority as much as possible. You try to get cited as much as possible. So they really do work in hand. If you're doing SEO, you're doing GEO, and if you're doing GEO, you're also doing SEO already automatically.
Great.
So
Thank you.
that's sometimes when a client asks me like, "Oh, is your SEO package going to help me with my GEO?" I say, "Yeah, my SEO and GEO package are pretty much the same scope of work."
Wonderful. It is important to say that this is a very innovative space, as all three speakers mentioned, and I see it as a marketing expert, exploring that realm for Fiverr and for our service catalog. We are living and learning something new about it every day. It's very important to stay on point, to keep trying, and to be patient with everything. I see that we have another question. Just like we have in SEO, sitemap indexing, and others, do we have any setup listings, our website for GEO? Open question for any one of the speakers that would like to pick that one up before we wrap. Barry, you're muted again. Now we hear you. Now,
Can
yes.
you hear me? There's always a lag. I'll jump in with 2 tips. One, make sure your robots.txt on the site does not block the bots, even potentially explicitly enables them. That's one. 2, make sure that your CDN, Cloudflare, whatever it is, does not block the bots as well. So those 2 things are just kind of table stakes that you should take care of right off the bat. And oftentimes sites the bots aren't able to reach your site because they're blocked. The other kind of quick tip too is kind of JavaScript. As of today, at least, the answer engines don't do a great job at reading it. They might in the future, but just think about how to make your site maximally accessible to the bots.
Wonderful. Great and important tips. If there are no questions, and I see we don't have any additional questions at the moment, thank you all for joining us. Thank you to all of our 3 speakers. This has been phenomenal. Very excited. I hope that you all found value in it, and we will see more GEO gigs in the next upcoming months. And that's it. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. We will have the recording be emailed to all the freelancers that was invited to this session. And again, have a wonderful day. Thank you all for joining.